Sony VRR update is finally here for Sony displays. Many of you have waited a very long time for this, some more than others. Is it worth the wait? Was it necessary? What's the good? What's the bad? We're here to find out.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. If this is the first time you are seeing me, please consider liking and subscribing. We are real tech for real people. Today's video is on the Sony VRR variable refresh rate update for all Sony panels that have HDMI 2.1. This has already been released on the 900H and I believe the X90J. We'll be testing it today on the A80J 77-inch OLED, which is behind me. Amazing panel. But what we want to talk about now is if it was worth it. Is it a good thing? Is it something you really need? It's not that easy of an answer. You can fast forward to the comparisons to the C1 OLED downstairs at 83 inches. We did Dying Light 2, which is a very important title in this discussion. Halo, both multiplayer and campaign. And what I wanted to see if there was any change in image quality, if the black level changed on the OLED, and how responsive it really was. Personally, I was very happy with the responsiveness on the A80J. You'll see in the comparisons, they look virtually identical. And I know many of you are just happy to see the boxes checked for VRR. What hasn't changed and isn't going to change is actually this one, where you have the Dolby Vision checked off. You do have to choose between Dolby Vision and this new enhanced VRR. That's something a lot of us knew going in. Dolby Vision, it is something that I like having on the C1. Is it worth it? It doesn't look very good on the C1 or any of the LG panels right now. It's still a bummer that it's not available, but it's not really the worst news that I want to discuss. So yeah, your red marks there, but it's the VRR that many of you are most excited about. Now, for me to play a lot of these games, even playing on an A90J Master Series and an A80J, I have no real issues at all with responsiveness. I really have enjoyed the image quality. And for those of you wondering, I have no dimming issues on the 77-inch A80. Perhaps I'm not sensitive to it, but I constantly get asked that question. I love gaming on this and the A90. That said, the C1 is definitely more responsive. I don't know if it's a VRR thing. It just felt snappier, felt quicker. They're both OLEDs. They have the instant pixel response. And this game looks phenomenal, I might add. Just have it paused in the background. But my concern for many of you, and I know this video is actually a day later than a lot of other videos, is it's always a challenge with firmware updates. And I'm going to be talking with FOMO on Tech and be the installer later today after this video drops in a live stream to discuss FOMO's findings with the X95. Primarily because when we do these updates and for Samsung, as you know, and now with Sony, local dimming is changed. Local dimming is disabled. Even if you see it being enabled and you say high and low, there's very little local dimming left, leaving you with a very washed out image. Personally, I don't know what the findings are, but if it was me, I definitely would not update if I have an LED. Now, I will tell you before we get into the tech therapy part of this, I do think it's a good thing, primarily because of games like this one. Dying Light is extremely responsive, but Dying Light on Xbox Series X just recently dropped a 120 update. Now, it's only 1080p 120, I believe. Maybe it's 1440p. You'll see in the C1 comparison. It fluctuates between 120, 90, 80. But the key thing is it actually used VRR to achieve this, which reminds me a little bit of the Ratchet and Clank update where they used HDMI 2.1 to do 40 frames per second. Not really using it the way you think they would. Same with variable refresh rate. Xbox and LG and whoever else, including Samsung, were able to achieve this 120 mode that wasn't previously available. That is a serious problem if you have a PS5, because that update's not coming. If you don't, and this VR update does not help the PS5, as I know right now. The PS5 has not taken its update. But right there, you see a separation between Xbox and the PlayStation 5. More importantly, you were seeing a serious separation between the LG OLEDs and the Samsung panels and Sony's panels. So this couldn't have come at a better time. The new Sonys will be out in April and in May. And from what I've heard, they are guaranteed to have the updates out of the box. Now, you will have to have a firmware update of some kind. All TVs do take updates when they release. But I was glad to hear they will be taking them out of the box. So for OLED fans, I have again a 77-inch A80J. And comparing it to the C1, which I game on every single day, I didn't feel any real difference at all in the response, the quickness, the change in direction. It didn't feel slow at all. Where when I had played on the A90J Master Series at Value Electronics, after I used the 98-inch QN90A, I did feel a little bit of a hitch on the Master Series. I'm looking forward to hear what FOMO has to say. He does have a Master Series. I think this fixes that. It wasn't a motion blur or a problem with motion. It just had a little bit of a, not a stutter, just wasn't quite as smooth as the LG C1. Now, to me, they feel virtually identical. Then the most important thing is in terms of the way they look. Now, they're not going to match up perfectly. The reason that dims is because it goes into a rest mode. The reason they're not going to match up perfectly is the panels aren't synced up perfectly in regards to if there's reality creation on the Sony live color, so they won't look identical. I haven't calibrated them to look the same, and the game calibrations are different. But what I wanted to show you in the comparisons is that in the dark areas of a game like Dying Light, which I think I'm near now. Let's see. In Dying Light, yeah, I'll go over here. The dark areas of the game still look fantastic. Really not good at playing it backwards. Here we go. So even though they do behave differently coming out of black, Sony's and LG OLEDs, I had no issues with raised blacks or anything like that for me. With the A80J, again, this is the 77-inch. It looks amazing, and it looks as good as the LG C1. And they both have different settings. You can customize them the way you like them. So I'm happy to report that that is all good. So those of you with OLEDs, I would say, and that really is only the A80J and the A90J, the A8H, the A9G are not HDMI 2.1. You won't have to worry about those. But for those two OLEDs, I think there's no reason to not upgrade. Again, I didn't notice any raised blacks or issues with picture quality. I didn't have any stuttering. I will say what I meant to say earlier was the kind of dimming and the fluttering that you see and some of the artifacting you do see with the C1 is still present on the Halo, and I'll show that in the comparison. Like in the Halo, you can see that there is a dimming and a flashing when you're in menus. That is still present on the Sony, so they both have it. You do see the controlling of frames. You do see it flutter a little bit, which is why, honestly, I don't use VRR much on the LG, which is why I thought Previously to Dying Light being updated and using the VRR container to get you to a higher frame rate, I didn't think it was a huge big deal for Sony fans not to have it. The best part is now it is here. You're able to tell the LG people to shut up and say, look, now we got it. We have the OLEDs that we love, and we have the gaming features for the most part that the other companies have. That is the best part. So OLED fans, update, enjoy, you'll be fine. LED fans, the fans I care the most about, right now, that would really be the X95J crew. I guess that would also fall into the Z9J crew. I personally would not update it. I would not even bother. The problems with updates is then you cannot roll it back. You are stuck with it. And that is, for me, if it messes at all with the local dimming of an LED, that is its strongest feature. Contrast ratio for me is the most important. Once you disable that, you will see more blooming. You will see, yes, you'll have more shadow detail, but it will hurt the blacks, thus hurting the contrast ratio. To me, that trade-off is not worth it. Sony displays have excellent looking game modes. And this is how strongly I feel about it. The reason I don't even consider Samsung LEDs is because of that one feature, that they disable local dimming in game mode. That's the only reason I won't even choose a Samsung, or at least the main reason. Now with Sony, if they force this X95 update on the X95K, and it does change the local dimming on the backlight master drive of the Z9K and the X95K, I wouldn't be considering them either, simply because contrast ratio for me is king. And unless they're going to do which is an idea that I have, is do a performance game mode and a cinema game mode. So I'm sorry if this video is finding you late. If you're somebody who's already updated it, I know for X900H owners and fans, you've been tortured a ton waiting for this update. You've had the update a few months ago, cut the resolution in half, also disabled the local dimming. It was choppy. And the X90J crew also had some issues. I no longer have the X90J. That was returned back to Value Electronics. So I can only speak on the A80J. But for the LED fan, I would definitely hold off, and I would just wait. The problem again with that, when it comes to firmware updates, they will slip them in. And it does raise that interesting concern that I mentioned earlier. If they're going to update them out of the box, that is concerning for me. They're going to take that first update that they need to take. Even when I test TVs in store or at home, you have to take that first update. It needs to download its apps and do all that. So that's the part that actually does concern me with the LEDs. So the good news on OLEDs, love the way it plays, playing a couple of the most taxing games on the Series X being Halo and Dying Light 2. No problems with image quality, no raised blacks, no problems coming out of black, no stutters, smooth. The LED crew, again, you can find out on Pass the Remote later this evening, which will be Brandon, be the installer, and FOMO, see what his findings are with the X95, and also follow all the other YouTubers to find out what their experiences are with LEDs. But for me, if what I hear is true, and I hope it isn't, if it disables local dimming, it's a huge problem, and hopefully they can rectify it. I'm Brian at Whisper Status 74. I'll show you the gameplay now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll also be talking a little bit through that gameplay. I'll see you in the comments. Alright guys, here we are with the comparison. We're going to start with Dying Light 2. As I mentioned, Dying Light is a very important part of this conversation, as it's one of the first titles to require VRR to achieve 120 FPS. Even though the game hovers between 80 and 100 on LG, Samsung, and Xbox Series X. Now Sony joins it, but it needed VRR to achieve that, meaning PS5 will not have it just yet, and Sony players were out in the cold in regards to their TVs as well. Excellent game, Dying Light, awesome art design, very ambitious in terms of its size and its scope. Here I am showing you a little bit of the darker part of the map to show you there isn't any raised blacks or any issues with coming out of black. Sony and LG do achieve this differently, and they can look rather different, but I do find they look very similar, even with the VRR update. Very pleased with this title, but as I mentioned, kind of the timing of this VRR update is very important, as I feel you will see more games take advantage of this feature. I don't love that you need VRR to achieve this. That's not exactly what VRR is typically for. Typically it's marketed as screen tearing. As I flip around with the screen here, it's typically not used to reach higher frame rates. It's typically used to stabilize them or sync them, hence the name. V-Sync, FreeSync, G-Sync. That's my dog breathing, not me. This game, again, very ambitious, very fun. It's resolution mode, it's ray tracing mode. Once you get into this higher frame rate mode, it does make a difference, because at 60 FPS, it wasn't nearly as good looking as 120. Now here we are with the C1, looks nearly identical. I would argue the C1 can look more cartoony or more saturated, which I prefer, but you can also do that with the, I should say the LG looks more saturated. You can do that with the Sony as well with live color, and you can also push the saturation there too. Felt that way with the C9 versus the A9G. Here I am showing you the rapid click on the green power button on the remote, which brings up the frame rate, just to show you, to illustrate that we are using the C1. Again, very impressed with this title, really enjoy it. Now I am confident that the PS5 will figure it out. Love the PS5. Again, I am also happy that Sony can at least say they have VR out of the box. Not thrilled, as I mentioned, with LEDs having to lose local dimming. Again, we will see. That's the rumor so far. I hope that's not the case. Now showing you the black levels in this as well, and wanting to end off in the same place we started with the comparison. Very vibrant game, one of the best skyboxes I've ever seen. We're going to move into the Halo campaign, which will be on the A80J, as you see here. Again, looks stunning, very quick pixel response, very responsive. Really happy with the way they look. Now we're still going to stay with Sony here. I want to show you actually the menu. And the reason why I wanted to do that was to actually show you that, auto low latency mode, things of that nature. Just want to double check. And that seemed to be automatic as well. Look for the specular highlights, look at the difference between them as we go over to the C1. But I do argue that considering that they are not calibrated the same, even in terms of internal settings, they do look incredibly similar. So I love these fights of one is so much better than the other. I disagree wholeheartedly. As we move into the C1 here.
Wow, look at this place. It's so...
Again, identical.
Full of more monsters coming to kill us. Incoming.
You can tell by the movement, you can tell by the image, the color. They look extremely similar. I'm moving to a little bit of multiplayer. Again, it's a little bit of a darker map. I wanted to show this one. I knew the difference between the two TVs because I had the rocket launcher for the Sony and I had the scatter shot for the Xbox. I'm sorry, for the LG. So when you do these comparisons and you sync them up, you know, you are filming one separately and then you're doing the screen wipe. But you're filming them at totally different times if they're not right next to each other. But I wanted to pick a little bit of a darker map to show you that they look relatively the same. Video's over in about 3 minutes. But really looks nice. And as we move over to the C1, again, nearly identical. Same with the movement, looks very much the same. So even if you're seeing blurring due to YouTube and the compression, you should see it on both. Moving over to the more urban map, show you some brighter daylight. Again, specular highlights look fantastic back on the Sony. So again, really pleased. Very, very happy with the way the update came out for at least the OLEDs. And here we are with the LG C1 to finish up. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. What are your thoughts on Sony's rollout? Are you happy they'll be there with all the new panels? Are you troubled or worried at all about the LED situation? Again, I'm not positively sure. The word kind of is out that it is going to affect local dimming. But what are your thoughts? Please let me know. But for me, very happy with it and looking forward to the TV season, which starts actually at the end of March with LG and Samsung. Then you will see Sony with a little TCL and Hisense kind of strewn about. All right, guys. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.